Welcome to Urban Knife Guy, where we explore the urban knife style and jungle survival. Today we're going to have a look at two popular tools and see how they stack up against each other when it comes to bushcraft and survival. We've got a Victorinox Swiss Army knife and a Leatherman multi-tool. Find out which I think fits my needs and the choice for jungle bushcraft and survival. First, if you watch this channel regularly but have not subscribed, please do so to help the channel out. Thanks. In this video, I'll be comparing and field testing a 111mm Victorinox Swiss Army knife, specifically the Swiss Soldier. And for the Leatherman multi-tool, I'll be talking about the Rebar. However, I believe most of the points that we discussed will apply to all 111mm Swiss Army knives and most Leatherman multi-tools. I've made a video on why I think the Rebar is better suited for jungle survival, and you can watch it in the link in the card above or the description below. I've also done a review on the Swiss Army knife Swiss Soldier that you can watch by clicking on the link in the card above or description below. I will not be reviewing each individual tool in detail, but will compare the various primary tools in the field that are most used for bushcraft and survival tasks. Let's get started. Let's first talk about the main blades. So the Swiss Army knife has one main blade, and for this particular version there's a spidey hole so you can open it with one hand. And this is a combo serrated blade. So you can see the serrations here, and there is a straight edge over here. Now the Leatherman has two blades. One is straight and one is serrated. And you access it by opening up the tool. And here you have the serrated blade, and on the other side we have the main blade. And you close the tool up just like that so that you can use it. So there we have two main blades. Now the Swiss Army knife has a thicker blade and longer blade if you compare it to both blades of the Leatherman. Overall, it's just much bigger. Now Victorinox does not officially advertise the composition of the alloy or the quality of the steel and its hardness, but the understanding within the community is that's EN 1.4110. Now the blade steel for most Leathermans is 420C. Now both are stainless steels. They are not super tough and do not have high edge retention, but they're both easy to sharpen and generally can do most regular tasks. But let's put both blades to the test. When it comes to cutting jute rope, the straight edge of the Victorinox actually works very well. But once it hits the serrated edge, then the rope begins to fray. The serrated edge is actually designed to cut fibrous material like the jute rope, but maybe not necessarily in this way on a flat surface. But I'm doing it for the sake of the field test. As you can see, it really frays the jute rope up. The Leatherman straight blade works really well when slicing through jute rope. It is made from a thinner blade stock, so that is to be expected. There's no problem making clean cuts through the rope. The serrated blade, on the other hand, works just as well as the Swiss Army knife. It too cuts through the rope, but it will fray the rope. So while serrated blades in general are effective in cutting through fibrous material like jute rope, they will not make clean cuts. For this rope cutting test, both knives worked about the same. When it comes to making stakes or sharpened points on wood, the combo blade of the Swiss Army knife performed well. It was not difficult removing material and did not require much effort. In this case, the combo blade is probably quite effective. The Leatherman's straight edge blade is very slicey, so it's also very easy to make the cuts. However, because the blade is thinner, you do feel a bit of flex, and it does not give you confidence to add too much pressure, unlike the Swiss Army knife. The serrated blade of the Leatherman also performed well, if not better than the straight edge blade, but the flex could also be felt. For this test, the edge goes to the thicker blade of the Swiss Army knife. If you're doing bushcraft or find yourself in a survival situation, fire preparation will likely be an essential task you'll be performing. When it comes to making feather sticks, I found that the Swiss Army knife combo blade and its chisel grind do not make it easy. While I could create feathers, it took a bit of effort. I should mention that this is not completely dry wood. There is a lot of moisture, so there is more bite in the wood. While feathering with the straight edge part of the combo blade, I could get the curls, but would have to be careful when the curls hit the serrated edge, as it would cut the curls off. This is not so much to do with the blade steel or thickness, but because of the blade design. For the Leatherman, the straight edge blade could easily make feather sticks. The thin blade made thin and long curls and was almost effortless. I did not test the serrated blade of the Leatherman, as I think the results would be similar to the Swiss Army knife, and since the straight edge already works, it is redundant. For feather sticking, the point goes to the Leatherman. For striking a ferro rod, you can use the back of the saw for both knives, as they come with both tools. You can strike the ferro rod to create sparks, and for this task, both knives work equally well. One important tool for bushcraft and survival is the wood saw. Both tools have saws, but they are of different lengths, different thicknesses, and the designs are different. I tried the Leatherman saw first, as I've experienced with the Swiss Army knife and know its capabilities. I was expecting the saw to require a lot of effort, but surprisingly it cut very well through this branch, and this took about 5 minutes. Next up was the Swiss Army knife. I should mention that I took a break to recover from fatigue to make this field test fair. I honestly expected the Swiss Army knife to make short work of the branch, but it took me a total of 7 minutes to cut through the branch. Even factoring in a bit of fatigue, it took longer than the Leatherman and more effort. Surprisingly, in the saw test, the Leatherman won out. The primary signature tool of the Leatherman is the pair of pliers. It can be an extremely useful tool for general camping, bushcraft, and survival. Most Leatherman's tools have a pair of pliers, as well as a pair of wire cutters. You can use it to repair gear, move items that you do not want to touch with your hands, or lift hot pots and cups from a fire or stove. In fact, this is one of the most common uses of a Leatherman for outdoor use. The Swiss Army knife does not have a pair of pliers, but there's a trick to use it if you want to handle a hot pot or cup on a fire. You can open the cap lifter and let it open at the half stop. Next, open the main blade and clip the handle of the pot or the cup between the blade and the hook of the cap lifter. Apply sideways force so you're not exerting pressure on the blade edge directly to prevent it from accidentally chipping. Done right, your blade will be safe and you can use it in place of a pair of pliers for this application. If you specifically need a pair of pliers, then naturally the Leatherman wins out. But the question would be, how often would you really need a pair of pliers in a bushcraft or survival situation? Let's talk about some of the other tools on the knives. The Swiss Army knife has a limited number of tools, such as the previously mentioned main blade and the saw. There's also a cap lifter and can opener. Both have screwdrivers, and these are common tools on Swiss Army knives. Now the back tools comprise of a Phillips head screwdriver, and there's an awl which can be used to puncture leather or drill holes into wood. Now this model has the nylon and rubber scales, so it does not have any scale tools. The Leatherman, being a multi-tool, has many more tools. You have seen the two main blades and the saw. There are also a variety of screwdrivers and different tools. So there's a Phillips head over here, and there is a can opener over here. And on this side, you have an awl, as well as a variety of smaller flathead screwdrivers. Probably the most useful tool for bushcraft and survival might be this file. So you can use the file to sharpen stones and other tools if needed. Now the great thing about this particular rebar is that all the tools can be locked. So you can actually just depress the lock, close that. But if you want, all the tools can lock, so you can really have confidence when using them. On the other hand, for the Swiss Army knife, only the main blade and the cap lifter and flathead tool can lock. So there's a half stop and there's a liner lock which locks both. You can see that coming across diagonally. So you would have to press that aside to close both these tools. Now the saw does not have a lock, and that's a feature that a lot of people generally would hope it would have. So if you're looking for a multi-tool knife, and in terms of the number of tools, the Leatherman will win out. Let's have a look at a few more factors that might be relevant for this discussion. The first is ease of deployment, and that is getting to your tools. So if you're talking about the main blade for the Leatherman, you'd have to open it up, look for the knife, and open it up like that. So this takes time. Now if a bear was charging at you, you won't have time to open this up to get to the blade, and the bear would kill you. In the case of the Swiss Army knife, you can open it with one hand. So if a bear is charging at you, you could open up this blade before the bear kills you. So at least you die with dignity. But kidding aside, it is quite important, in my opinion, to be able to deploy the main blade with one hand. Because in bushcraft or a survival situation, both your hands might not be free. You might need to be holding something down, and you want to reach in and get the blade out with one hand in order to perform a task. So in this case, point goes to the Swiss Army knife. In terms of ergonomics, I think the point goes to the Swiss Army knife as well. It is contoured, as you can see. Even though there are the tools sticking out, you do get a very fair purchase and a decent grip. And compared to the Rebar, because everything is just straight, it is utilitarian, it is functional, but I won't say it's completely ergonomic. So point goes to the Victorinox. And if you talk about weight, I don't have the exact weight for both of these knives, but naturally, because there are more tools, the Leatherman is a bit heavier. So if you're looking for something that's lightweight, then you might lean towards the Swiss Army knife. Let's talk about fit and finish. Both of these knives generally have good fit and finish, but if you're talking about a more polished look and just general overall better fit and finish, definitely goes to the Swiss Army knife. Now the Leatherman has very decent fit and finish, but it just doesn't have that finish quality. It definitely feels more like a tool. This obviously is a tool, but at the same time feels like it's something you could carry around in your pocket or even collect, where this is obviously just a functional tool. Now related to the fit and finish is what I consider the breaking in of the tool when you first buy it. Now for the Victorinox, you get it right off the box and you can deploy it easily and use all the tools and get to them. So that's a joy to work with. With the Leatherman, you really need to break it in, and I talked about this in my previous video of the Rebar, where you would have to oil it, clean it, repeat the process hundreds of times, close and open it, just so that it gets easier to open and close. Now that does take a lot of effort, so if you're talking about breaking in, Victorinox is much easier to do. And when it comes to cleaning, because there's just so many more moving parts for the Leatherman, you would naturally have to spend more time cleaning it than the Victorinox. Now, even though both these tools are made from stainless steel, if you go out into the field, you will have to clean them. You would have to oil it and remove any grime or sand. Finally, let's talk about the price. Now, for this style of Victorinox knife, the Swiss Soldier or other variations, you can get it from anywhere from US about $50 to $80. It does tend to have a wide range depending where you buy it from and I guess which country you are in. For the Leatherman, generally you pay between US $80 to $150. Now the Rebar is US $80. So from an absolute price point, the Swiss Army knife is less expensive, but you need to take into account value. So the multi-tool for the Leatherman is just much more substantial in the number of tools, so more materials used, there's more engineering as well, so you can expect it to be more expensive. So I would say both of these tools are fairly expensive, but they are of high quality and will last you a long time if you take care of them properly. So which do you think is the better tool for bushcraft and survival? Here are a few considerations. Is this the only tool you'll be carrying? Is this your primary knife, secondary knife, or backup knife? What are the exact tasks you intend to perform? What climate and environment are you in? Do you have a lot of mechanical or electronic gear with you? Or maybe you ride on a motorbike or ATV. So the answer really depends on your individual needs and requirements. I'll share with you which I have chosen when I go out into the tropical jungle. First, some context. I've been carrying the Swiss Soldier for some time now, but as I carry a parang and a primary fixed blade and a secondary fixed blade, this Swiss Soldier is actually my backup blade and is part of my survival pouch, which is carried on a bigger pouch on my belt. This is a self-contained survival pouch designed for 24 hours to 48 hours of survival as well as emergencies. However, after field testing both tools, I've decided that the Leatherman Rebar is a better fit for my pouch. The feather sticking and sawing capabilities surprised me and has many more tools that may be useful in survival or emergency situations. And since this is not my primary tool, I'm willing to compromise on the thickness of the blade, the weight, ergos, and ease of deployment. Having said that, if I were going out for a light hike and I'm not bringing my bushcraft gear or my belt, and I'm only bringing one of these tools and maybe a primary fixed blade, I would definitely choose the Swiss Army knife over the Leatherman. It outscored the Leatherman in most of the tasks that are important to me, and it's an easier carry with faster deployment. So there you have it. I choose the Leatherman as part of my emergency jungle survival kit, but I'll always choose the Swiss Army knife if it is a primary or secondary knife. So does that change your thoughts on both these tools? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you like the content in general, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.